Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Free to Be podcast with your host, me, Jazzy P. I just want to start out by saying that y'all really showed out on that last episode. I feel like it basically went viral, like going from 10 views to 45 views, floating on Cloud Nine. So thank you so much to everyone who listened, liked, subscribed. I'm so incredibly thankful that you spent your precious moments with me. I'm really grateful. I also want to shout out to our first Patreon subscriber. Shout out to CL, our very first Patreon subscriber. If you want to join Patreon, go ahead and go to patreon.com/free to be jazzy. There are different tiers with different levels of content. But if that is not your jam right now, go ahead and subscribe completely free. Or if you're listening to this on maybe Spotify or Apple or Amazon Music, then please like this, follow, or subscribe to the podcast and rate it 5 stars if you feel so inclined. That would be so helpful. So let's jump right in, right? So, like I said in the previous episode, I am working on titles for this segment, right? And my husband said that I should call this section Jams My Glock. You know what really jams my Glock? Instead of grind my gears, I should call this Jams My Glock. So, you know what really jams my Glock? When you hand someone something and they give it back to you by lying it down in front of you or by putting it on the counter. Nothing jams my Glock worse in a public setting than somebody putting something on the counter that you have handed to them. But wait, there's more. They make it worse when your hand is clearly out, reaching for, waiting for the object, the item, and they put it down on the counter in front of you. And I really began to notice this maybe since COVID. So, like, I get it, right? But let's not pick and choose. I mean, we can do what we want, but people are picking and choosing. So let's not pick and choose. If we're not going to wear the masks, if we're not going to have the protective screens, if we're not going to use the hand sanitizer, then let's not get cute when it's time to hand stuff back to people. Like, if you're worried about germs, then let's go all the way and let's be worried about germs, okay? So I was and what I was going to say is maybe, aside from being COVID, maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe young people aren't handing things back. Maybe they don't even see it as a respect or a disrespectful thing. But older folks are doing it too. And that really just jams my Glock. So 2 instances has happened maybe within the past 2 weeks. I was at the library and they actually do have a protective glass there still, which I really love and appreciate. But I handed the librarian books to check out and she handed them back on the counter. She slid them back. And I said thank you and I just took them. But I handed something to my son, in presence and in view of the librarian. I handed something to my son and he either put it back on the counter or he disrespectfully handed it back to me. And I said, no, son, I put this in your hand, so I expect you to give it back to me the same way. Within earshot of this librarian. And so my son gave it back to me in my hand. We modeled that and addressed that or whatever. And actually the next time that I went back to the library, I handed her the books again. I put them in her hand. And then she handed me the books right back in my hand. I don't know if y'all heard that, but something's going on with the furnace. I hope that's... Anyway, moving on. she put it back in my hand, and I was like, oh great, you know, this matters to me. This is really respectful. This really matters to me. Oh, ooh, actually, I'm thinking about a third instance. So one time I went and got some ice cream and I gave the guy my card. Ooh, that's probably worse. Worse than handing me a receipt is when I hand you my card, something that belongs to me, my property, and you put it down on the counter. Woo! I handed him my card, and this was a kid, and he put it back on the counter. And I said, I would really appreciate it if you put it back in my hand just as I handed it to you. And he looked at me like I was out of my mind. How dare I ask him to put this back in my hand, put my card back in my hand? But I did. And quite honestly, we would have been looking at each other like that Diddy, and I don't even know the whole context, but you know that meme where Diddy looking at the guy and the guy looking at Diddy and they just looking back and forth at each other. We would have been doing that until that card was put back in my hand. I'd probably still be standing there if he hadn't picked it up, put it back in my hand. It's just a respect thing. And like even when I'm at the grocery store and I only have 2 or 3 items, I hand it directly to the cashier because it's about a respect thing for me. And lastly, I was at the grocery store a couple of days ago, bought some raspberries. They were moldy, didn't even notice, took them back, and the guy, I handed him my receipt, and then he put the receipt on the counter. And so sometimes when I'm with my son, I don't always pick that battle, but I'm also realizing that maybe I should because it's important for him to see that I am demanding in some spaces respect. But sometimes I pick my battles when I'm in public with him. It just feels like a safety thing for me. But I picked up the receipt and then I put it back down and I'm like, I don't need this receipt and I feel disrespected. And of course, again, that's on me for not speaking up about it. But I put the receipt back down because if he didn't have the courtesy to hand it to me, clearly I didn't need the receipt and really it was of no value to me. So I didn't take the receipt because that's completely disrespectful. But I don't know. Am I tripping? Like, let me know. Do you even care? Is it even anything that you have thought about? Do you even realize or acknowledge when somebody doesn't hand something back to you, doesn't put that object back into your hand? And if you don't, why? Like, why is just you just picking your battles? It doesn't matter to you. It matters to me. But you know, different strokes for different folks. There are things that probably I don't interpret as a really big deal that others do, but it matters to me. And I probably actually I absolutely know. I got this from my dad. I watched him on several occasions tell people, ask people to put it back in his hand. I put that pen in your hand, put this pen back in my hand. I've seen and heard my dad make that request or demand that respect on multiple occasions. And it's something that I value. And I want to pass that on to my son. And hopefully the generation coming up and those around us will value that and see that as a form of respect as well. So today's topic is something that honestly I'm a little bit embarrassed to talk about because at my big age, well, not this big age, it was a slightly smaller age, but it was still a big age. This was something that I experienced and tried to hide and felt really embarrassed and almost childish, and I couldn't figure out why I was feeling the way I was feeling at my big age, but I had to really just lean into it, and I'm so thankful to my therapist. Although these feelings I wasn't necessarily mentored into leaning into, just that her guidance really helped. But it is the feeling of envy. For such a long time, and really depending on the season of my life, I was an envious person. And like I have said before, if I'm going to be free to tell it, I'm going to tell it and I'm going to be real and transparent. I was an envious person. And maybe envious isn't even the right word because I wouldn't necessarily want what somebody else wanted, but I felt envious that they were achieving a level of success in their life and I wasn't achieving it in my life. And really, what it really comes down to is that people were happy and I wasn't. So I will own that now that I'm talking through it and talking out loud. And this isn't meant to be a therapy session or a therapeutic session. But what I'm realizing now is that I was envious of other people's happiness because I was so miserable and upset and unhappy in my own life. So I was always genuinely happy for my friends' success or happy that they were happy, but I was envious of that happiness because I was so unhappy. And like I said, it didn't matter what it was. And it didn't necessarily matter if it was something that I did not want myself. I wasn't necessarily envious of the possession, but I was absolutely envious of the feeling. Oh, wow. And now I feel a little tickle in my throat just thinking about this now. This does feel therapeutic for me, although again, that's not my intention. It has taken me way too long. Like I said, I'm at this big age, and it has taken me what I feel way too long to really reach a level in a place where I feel like I am genuinely happy. I'm not disguising it. I'm not faking it. I'm not lying about it. In this place and in this moment, in this season, I'm happy. And I'm not only happy, I'm filled with joy and I'm filled with gratitude. And it is such an undescribable feeling. And I know I'm getting off topic here a little bit, but come on, let them use me. Let them use me. I was so disappointed and so dissatisfied with life for so long. And I don't even know how I got to that point because I was a fiery adolescent. I said what I wanted, probably too much. I love saying things for shock value. And as I become more and more comfortable in this platform, y'all will see that sometimes I just say stuff for shock value. So I would say what I want. Within reason, I would do a lot of what I wanted, but somewhere along the line, I stopped. I stifled my own growth. I put myself in a box. I limited myself. And I was just telling myself this today. I be having some good conversations with myself. I said, self, and myself said, for someone who encourages others not to accept no, you sure do accept no way too often. I am fierce and I'm fired up about other people's goals, other people's dreams. And then when it comes to my goals and my dreams, sometimes I accept no too quickly or too often. Don't get me wrong, I have accomplished a lot. I will continue to accomplish a lot. But sometimes I just wonder, where would I be if I hadn't accepted that no? And everything that we go through in life is a part of our story, a part of our plan, a part of our journey. But I sometimes I just can't help but wonder, where would my life have taken me? Where would I be on my journey if I hadn't accepted no's as many times as many times as I did? So circling back, I really felt really envious of people's happiness. And part of what really helped me get out of that is, I've said it once, I'll say it again, one of my favorite influencers, social media personalities, and that is Stacey Flowers. Her whole mission is to live to live happily and to help others uncover and discover happiness for themselves. And I just love her content and how she is for radical happiness, unapologetic happiness, and a lot of her work, her content, and the work that I've done with my therapist has really led me to this point. And I'm just so thankful. And I used to think that I was jealous. And that's why I'm glad that I've recently came across this the distinction between envy and jealousy. It was actually on a podcast. Miss Kev on Stage, another one of my favorite content creators, and she broke down the difference between envy and jealousy. And so envy is like feeling pain of wanting what somebody else has, whereas jealousy is you feel threatened. You feel threatened by someone, or you feel fearful of losing your position to someone else. And for so long, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so jealous! I'm so jealous." But really, it wasn't jealousy, because I never felt threatened. Mostly, I didn't feel threatened by anyone, but I was definitely envious and envious of their happiness. And I hope that whoever's listening isn't thinking, "Dang, I really thought she was happy for me. I didn't know she was a hater." Maybe, I wonder which one is hater more synonymous with, envy or jealousy? Maybe envy, but I wasn't hating. I wasn't mad that you got the new car, got the new job, got the new office, had the baby, travel. I wasn't mad that you were doing that. I was mad because I wasn't able to appreciate and be happy in my space. And so for my friends and my family, I am so happy for you, and so proud of everything that you have done. And truthfully, more people than I realized I'm motivated by. And I'm so thankful that you have shared your accomplishments with me. And I never, ever, ever want anybody to feel like they can't share their accomplishments with me. And one last thing before I go, because I really, really feel like this is what what really helped me. So some of you may know that I applied for membership in my sorority some time ago, like in undergrad, and did not make it. And so whenever initiation season came around, now that was envy. I ain't gonna lie, that was envy. Whenever initiation season came around and people that I knew, especially, were initiated, I was happy for them, but that was also a little bit of hater energy. Now I'm gonna say with my chest, that was hater energy. That was envy. I was so envious for so long, and maybe I'm oversharing, child. Maybe it's time to hit stop on this record button. But I was so envious for so long. But I don't even know who it was or what it was. But once I was able to release that envy from my heart, that's when things really started to fall in line for me. And I was so happy for those that made it before I did. And then probably, I don't even know, a few years later, after I released that envy from my heart, what do you know? What do you know? She became a devastating diva herself, because there's no room for envy in Delta. We just don't have time. So I'm so glad I didn't carry that spirit with me, through initiation. But I really hope that you all appreciated this episode, and I hope I'm not alone in this envy. I'm not in this envious season anymore, but I really hope that I wasn't alone. And if you are experiencing envy, maybe even jealousy, I really encourage you to uncover what it is that is causing you to be envious. Whatever work that you need to do, I encourage you to do it. It's probably going to be painful. It's probably going to be uncomfortable. It's probably going to get really ugly. And nobody is going to understand what's going on around you. But I really encourage you to work through that, because it is so much. The sun shines brighter over here. The air is cleaner over here. It's you have got to release that envy from your heart, because it's not doing anyone any good. But until next time, please, please, please give this a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the podcast. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And until next time, peace.